bad for everybody, and especially the kids, because it's just a big change for them right now. But I think most families that I'm seeing want to get back to some kind of normal or near normal
Right.
life. And I think the reality a couple months into it is hitting them just now, that it's probably going to take longer than they thought initially. So that's what I'm seeing, kind of like that, kind of hitting a little bump in the road, that they want to get back into it, realize they can't. They want to understand a little bit more how to do kind of like a moderate amount of living without putting their families at danger. And everyone wants to go back to school in the fall. Everyone that I'm seeing they feel like virtual learning was hard. It had challenges. The kids probably didn't learn as much as they would have in school. So even though Georgia's a fairly high incidence state, I think most people would love the school districts to be creative and come up with a way that's safe. It's going to be different, but I think they're open to doing what's safe to get the kids back. That's what I'm saying.
So that's promising, and I'm glad from a medical perspective you're sensing that just in the community right now. I think you're aware of this, but we work with thousands of educators all over the country. So obviously a lot in Georgia, but a lot in all quadrants of the U.S. What recommendations do you have for them as they kind of wrestle through the CDC guidelines and just thinking about what a a healthy and safe environment looks like next year in classrooms? Are there just some basic recommendations you have for them to consider?
And a lot of these are taken directly off like of, studies from hospitals and doctors, and they're in the midst of the hospitals and the CDC together. But we're compiling a video series. My daughter's actually making it for our job right now, for our work. And basically they're saying, social distancing works. And in a school environment, the schools would have to be creative on how to ensure that. When social distancing cannot be done for whatever reason, they're requiring a mask.
Okay.
The thought process, and you probably know just as much as I do, but the thought process is, I protect you from me and you protect me from you. Wear a mask so we could protect each other. So that's like a cultural change for us. So like in your business, if you're selling masks, I think the schools are going to have to buy into asking the kids to wear masks, because they can say we're going to social distance, and we can talk about maybe some creative ways of what the schools could do. um, when they work with their own public health department. Each county is going to be very different from the next, depending on the incidence. But so social distancing first, wearing the mask second, because everyone knows no child's going to just stay away from
Right.
each other.
I
Best
know.
friends are like right on top of them. So
Nice
that's going
thought,
to
but
happen. Yeah, they're not going to do that. And then third, wash your hands for 20 seconds. If you can't wash your hands, use the sanitizer or something with at least a 60% alcohol-based component. Keep the surfaces that are group surfaces, shared surfaces, desks, countertops, everything clean, and disinfect regularly. Like, how much is regularly? I mean, I don't know. We're doing it every 10 minutes in our office, but they're not going to do that in the schools. They're not going to wipe everything down every 10 minutes. Um, and then the fifth thing that I've gleaned from what to do is change the culture, which comes from people like me and you. And as you market it, like, I think it's important for people to know that they're not just protecting themselves, they're protecting others from themselves. So the new thing about why masks are necessary, and that's where you can help, is you have to be a leader. You have to change the culture. Not everyone's going to be a quick adapter. Like, different personalities do different things. And I think a lot of people do follow leaders. And if we can promote that this can work, then people like you and we can change the culture.
obviously the culture in a pediatrics office is very health focused. So I would imagine you've had some experience with just helping kids and adults to understand some of the challenges and difficulties that we've sort of all had to confront immediately around COVID. Any tips or suggestions on just how we can better relate and explain to kids, specifically kids, kind of the dangers of COVID, but also the ways they can protect themselves and still live a relatively normal, healthy life?
Yeah, I really, when I talk to the kids that I see, I tell them that, you know, COVID is a virus that we can't see it, but, you know, obviously it's there. But there's other viruses that we've been able to, you know, live with, like the flu. We're very well adapted to as a society with the flu, like flu shots, we get them seasonally and people still interact. And, you know, when you're sick, you stay home until you're, you know, well for a couple days before you go back. We've learned how to live in the midst of flu season. And then I tell them that that gives me great hope with the whole world working on this at the same time, that we will also learn to live and get through COVID seasons, or whatever we're going to call them. COVID waves, I think wave is the terminology they're using. So
Right.
I give them a lot of hope, saying that, you know, because so many scientists and great minds are working on this at the same time, you know, I'm rather sure we'll come up with treatments and a vaccine. But since the vaccine is not there yet, I just explained to them, like I told you, the 4 to 5 simple things that we can do to protect them, and that there's other things that are really important in life too, like having friends, staying connected, playing their sports, doing things, that all this is, you know, important as well. And we want to help them achieve those things. But since this is a new problem, that it may take a couple months for the adults to figure out how to safely do that. So just explain it to them, but give them a great bit of hope. And I tell them, you know, anytime you're confronted in life with something that doesn't have an answer immediately, like say you're approaching a problem, you don't know the future, you can't predict it, and you don't have your answers. The most important thing that you can do as a person is that you can keep your routines constant. So every day, wake up at the same time, eat with your family, take your snacks, exercise, go outside, get some sunlight on your body. You know, you still need to, you know, learn, you still need to educate yourself, but this is the time to spend more family time, pick up a new hobby, learn a new sport, do something that you always wanted to do. I've had many kids that have learned how to cook. I want to go on Master Chef Junior when it opens up. I've had some cool, great kids that have been amazing. They've learned to make masks themselves. Some of them are writing books. Some of them are painting. Others are becoming, you know, they want to run a marathon. So people are doing things, and it's those kids that are staying mentally strong.
Yeah. Gosh,
So
that's
I try to encourage them. You have to look at the positive. What's the silver lining? What are you going to do because you have more time?
it is. It's inspiring, it's hopeful, and it's encouraging. And we've seen some really great examples just in the communities that we serve all over the country of thought leaders like yourself from education, kind of pushing the same hopeful, inspiring message of this doesn't mean we all just hide in our homes and
Oh.
become hermits, but we learn to live with this, and we continue to live with optimism and courage to just keep going and enjoy the things we've always enjoyed, but just maybe in a different way than how we enjoyed them 3 months ago.
That was well said. That's great.
So you've mentioned masks a few times, and obviously that's one thing we just feel like we're uniquely positioned to help with, especially when it comes to kids, because we do have a kids mask that's specifically fit to the smaller shape of a child's face. Masks have obviously been a part of medicine for a long time. We're all relatively new with procedures on how to handle them, and if it's a reusable mask, how to clean them, how often to clean them. Just any tips for the general public on if they have a reusable mask, how often to wash it, kind of what to look out for in terms of cross-contamination, things like that?
I mean, I would recommend they wash it every day, and, not just buy one mask, from you. I would buy, a week's worth, because like the reality is you can't just wash one mask every day.
Right.
But I think I think you just want to keep it clean, because even if you're just wearing it yourself, obviously, there's humidity in there and you're breathing in and out. And I think, I mean, there's nothing written in the literature about that, but my preference would be daily and
Mhm.
buy multiple. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. What concerns are you hearing from parents? We obviously work with a lot of kids, but we work with a lot of parents as well. And just, can you give us a little insight into maybe what their fears or concerns are right now, just so our team especially can kind of meet them where they're at and help, maybe just help to navigate some of that?
I think parents are concerned about, they realize on the news, they understand that COVID is killing people. They see that too much, and they see that there's this new inflammatory process going on in some of the kids, especially New York, who's been hit the hardest. They feel guilty mentioning this, but they feel like they want their kids to be mentally strong, so they realize they need some kind of social interaction. Most of them are aware it's safer to go outside and be outside and do things, but still socially distance. So they're conflicted, because they want their kids to get back into it with sports and activities. And they realize that the only way their kids are going to be mentally happy again is like to do that. But they're terrified on how to do it. They feel guilty even mentioning that, because they realize that on one side they're terrified to even come to the doctors, let alone to go to school. But at the same time, they really want their kids to go to camp this summer. Does that make sense? It doesn't.
Yeah,
It's
no.
like,
As a parent, that you just described the sort of constant conflict inside my head and inside my heart. So
and me too. And so I tell them, you are normal, and I feel the exact same way. Like, I mean, one day I wake up and I'm like, okay, we just got to like find a way to live again and do this. And like, so it's this conflict that they're having. Some people are getting angry. Some people are very sad about it. Others are super positive, and they're out changing the world and creating a new culture, which is awesome. But that's like 10% of us, right? And that's it. And then, so I think they're battling these very real fears, and they're looking to the health professionals, the leaders in the community that are selling products, whoever, to help them navigate, well, what should I do? But
mm,
they're also battling people that are polarly opposed to whatever they're doing. So you have this group that's hibernating, and you have this group that's not responding to social distancing at all. And then you have many that are in the middle, and they're just like, which way do I go? Which way do I go? They're paralyzed. They don't know. So everyone is waiting to see what the schools are going to do.
mm,
Pete, that's, everyone's looking to the schools. They're like looking like, oh, I hope that they will open. But they are not sure. You know what I mean? So I think I think the schools have quite an opportunity to set like a gold standard, so to speak, on like how to live again.
yeah.
Um, I'm hoping, my hope is that the schools will do like a hybrid kind of program, where they'll do a staggered start, maybe a staggered finish, with like half the kids, staggering them, or like maybe even half the kids go to school like Monday, Wednesday, half Tuesday, Thursday. They clean the school on Friday, and they have virtual assessments on Friday, or virtual learning. I think there's going to have to be some hybrid program, because I don't think you can social distance a heavy classroom in a public school. I
Mhm,
don't think you can.
mhm,
But maybe they'll try. Another thought is, maybe they will try, and they'll bring everyone in. They'll have them in masks. They'll break up the class a little differently. Um, I'm not sure, and maybe they'll just do virtual school over Thanksgiving as flu hits. That's another option too. I'm not sure which way they'll go.
Yeah.
No. Do you think they know what they're going to do?
It seems like every state is interpreting those CDC guidelines and envisioning something different. So I mean, everything you just shared from kind of a fragmented start to the year to A/B schedules to much more aggressive social distancing and protection precautions like face masks and things like that. I've heard everything. And I've also heard that the experiment with e-learning as the only option was very challenging for educators and for parents and for students. So I think that is encouraging a lot of people to think of how can we get back to some sense of normalcy in the classroom, even though there's going to have to be some adjustments made.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree. I think it might be like a trial and error thing because I don't think anyone knows, and I'm not sure we'll know until like whatever's next hits us, you know?
Yeah. And at the rate we've been going, it's, we find out new details almost by the hour, or at least by the day.
Exactly. And I think that's where, we all have to work with, like, I know our group is looking towards the CDC and like the local health departments to find out, what's working best. Like the one thing I can say with the medical community is we've been thrown into it and we've had to work regardless of our feelings about it. And I do feel that social distancing, eating away from the people that I work with, Zoom meetings, even though we're in the same office space. And then we wear our cloth masks when we're breaking our patients up to wells up and through 1:30 and then sick in the afternoon, but screening by telehealth so that we screen out the COVID people and test them first. I think those things are working though. That's working.
That's good to hear.
But we hazmat up. I mean, when anyone comes in with a cold or runny nose or no fever, they don't have to have a fever. We hazmat up if they have any congestion, cough, sore throat, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle aches, anything, like anything at all. And I think that schools are going to have to screen each member of the class, like of children that comes in and take their temperature every day and keep out anyone sick. That they're just going to have to get them tested and send them off to the COVID centers to do testing.
Yeah, it's going to look different, that's for sure. Hey, I want to be mindful of your time, but I also think you just have a lot of wisdom, both from a medical perspective, but just from a general kind of caring for kids perspective. I know KidsGerogia is a big organization. And so just with last few minutes, I'd love for you just to share any insights or thoughts you have just as a parent and as a mom and as somebody who's just a champion for children here in Georgia and also around the country. Any resources that you feel would help the average parent in these times just connect more with their kids and give them the kind of love and inspiration that they need, and also just anything that you feel like would help us be more educated and therefore more engaged in what's going on?
I think there's a lot of resources in a lot of areas. I think, the first thing that I would mention to families, the first resource of getting through something like this is going to be like for mental stability, because I think that I think every obstacle that everyone confronts, whether it's health or socioeconomic or whatever it is, I think there's a battlefield that goes on in the mind. So to keep the mind obstacles out of the way so people don't get paralyzed, I always ask people first, do you have any faith-based organizations that you belong to? If they do, stay connected. Stay connected to what you believe in, number one. So if they can do those services on Zoom, or they can do, any kind of social interaction with those people that they relate to and they are like thinking with, they should do that. Number two, stay connected to your healthcare team. The COVID crisis is not the time to miss a well checkup and help prevent the 4 million other potential problems that can be plaguing your family and your child. I mean, people have shied away from taking care of their own bodies, their health care. We have so many stories of health deteriorating, I can't even talk, both physically and mentally in 2 months. It's crazy. It's like, why is everyone doing that?
Wow.
I don't know. So I think stay connected for that. Number 3, I mean, it's like your kids were kids 2 months ago. They had dreams. They definitely had activities. So whatever activity that they were connected with before, if they're a sports person, if they, play baseball, take them to the batting cages, let them get out there, stay connected with the sports team, follow the coach's plan of staying physically fit. You should be talking to your kids' coaches, like what can I do to keep my kid interested so they don't feel the disconnect. And like if it's a dancer, do virtual dance classes. If it, do something to stay connected to how your kid relates to people. And I think those are the main things. I mean, I think teachers have played a huge role in these kids virtually, even though it was hard for a season to do it like that. But I think the resources that they provide at the schools, a lot of the kids that we take care of, their mainstay of eating was school lunches.
Yeah.
So we're having a deficit right now of kids that are not being well fed. I think people have to know where food banks are, how they can participate in raising food awareness and like donations for a good part of our city that they are not eating, they are not getting their basic needs met. And we as a community should be looking out for each other. So I think the people that have resources, start giving, get connected to what you can do to make a difference, because the best way to overcome a problem is putting yourself not first, but like looking towards helping.
Right.
And it takes the perspective off of, oh my God, my daughter graduated and she didn't get to go to her ceremony. That's big, but maybe there's a bigger issue out there that we could all focus on. So I think broadening the horizons of perspective and making each person aware that they can do better for themselves, for their kids' future, for their community, and for the world, get involved. That's what I would say.
Gosh. Linda, I don't know if you know this, but our vision is that every school is strengthened, every student's inspired, every community's thriving so that we can change the world. And you just gave the most beautiful, perfect narrative for that. So that's
awesome. I didn't know. Sean didn't tell me that.
Highlight reel for years to come. That's amazing.
Okay, awesome. That's great. I love that. I love what you're doing.
Well, we feel like there's a huge need for that in the schools. Our CEO founder, Chris Carneal, kind of answered that call 18 years ago, and we're now serving 4,000 schools. And to your point, this has had a lot of unintended consequences, both on our business and the very people that we serve. But, I keep hearing a lot of hope and inspiration in what you're sharing. And it's good for me to hear, because there've been a couple of days where I've kind of struggled to see past just this haze that we're living in. But it's a good needed reminder from you. And I think a lot of what you shared is going to be really helpful to kind of the average parent that's just, to your point, not really sure where to turn. So some of us have just gotten stuck.
We're stuck. We don't know what to do, right?
It's time to kind of start walking again and move out of this.
Absolutely. Well, I'm inspired that that's like what your vision is, and that's amazing. Like people, like you and who are going to be leaders and really able to reach the masses. I mean, I can reach my own patient population, but I can't reach people across state lines. I can't reach the educators. I mean, that's going to be you being, in a leadership position to kind of really spread it out, spread it forward. And I think hope is contagious, and like if you give people just a little sliver of it, they're gonna take it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's those that won't, but there's many that will. And yeah, that's awesome that you're doing that. That's awesome.
Well, we'll have to get you to come speak once we can all gather again. Come speak at one of our school events, because I think you've got a lot of wisdom to share, and I know it would be great to share it with the communities both here in Atlanta and all over the country that we're a part of. So
Well,
thank you.
absolutely. You know, let me know whatever you need, and I'm happy to help. And it was certainly nice seeing you tonight.
This is awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking time
Sure.
in your busy schedule.
Sure. Well, have a good evening. Okay.
All right, you too, Linda. Thank you.
Sure. Bye bye.